Welcome to Don't You Two Read, a podcast where two sisters talk about all things books.
We're just two girls who found ourselves texting about books on a daily basis and thought, why not turn on a mic?
We'll be talking about our recent reads, a weekly bookish topic, and what we're looking forward to reading next.
So grab a cup of coffee and maybe even a snack and be prepared to take down your TBR and add a lot to it as we talk all things books.
I'm Hilary, and I'm a mom in Oklahoma, and I am fully embracing Christmas in July.
And I'm Hannah, a stay-at-home mom in Texas who has DNF'd several books this week.
Oh no. How many have you DNF'd?
2 or 3.
I feel like we're going to have to do an episode about that soon.
Yeah, for sure.
I was going to ask you how your reading week's been, so I guess not good.
It has been like the first half was very, very slumpy. And then I feel like right now, the books that I'm reading, I'm really enjoying. So I feel like I'm coming out of it once again.
Yeah, I DNF'd a very popular book this week, and so that messed me up big time because I got stuck on it, and then by the time I knew it, it was like Thursday. So I'm like, well, cool. I've read half of a book and I'm not even gonna finish it or whatever. So uh that kind of messed up my little mojo.
So, what is this about Christmas?
Okay, so I've read two Christmas books this week. Well, I listened to one and then I'm finishing up one right now. And partially because I just want to, because I'm ready. Like it's over 100 every day now in Oklahoma, and I'm over it. And so I love being in the AC, reading a Christmas book about snow, but I also know that Christmas is for real coming sooner than I know it. And so I'm like stockpiling the Christmas reads because I know we're gonna have an episode about like Christmas recommendations. So I'm like, Hannah's gonna have 200,000, so I gotta pile them in.
I get very excited about Christmas. I'm Christmas all year long. I do think I take a small break in January or like from Christmas, from like the day after Christmas till like New Year's. Or like a little beyond that, like a little into January. I'm like, okay, let me just pause Christmas. And then pretty soon, it doesn't take long. I like Christmas pretty much the entire year. So, yes, it's true.
Yeah, but I've been liking it, but it's hard because I know not many people want to hear about my Christmas stuff yet. However, we did say next week we would share one in case anybody wanted like a quick Christmas in July recommendation.
Christmas in July, but also I do think it's worth it to have things on your radar because A, if you're renting things at the library, sometimes like by the time you think about it, it's
Yeah,
too
there's like
late.
50 weeks or whatever.
Yes, so you have to get in early on that. And yeah, I don't think it's ever too early to add to your TBR. So, I hope you feel the same, but that's what's happening.
If you don't like it, you don't like it. Okay. What was your first book for the week?
Okay, I'm very excited to start this week with a favorite for me, Desire or Defense by Leah Brunner. This book is about Mitch, a notoriously angry, grouchy DC Eagles hockey defenseman that just cannot keep his temper in check. His temper leads to a 15-game suspension from the NHL. And if that wasn't bad enough, Mitch is forced into a short-term youth hockey coaching gig to rebuild his image. What he didn't expect was to meet Andy, a gorgeous, spunky blonde who stomps onto the ice on day one to lecture him about being rude to her little brother. Something about this spitfire of a woman and the boy she's so protective of has his defenses melting the ice that he's carefully built around his heart. Okay, I want to start by saying that I'm sorry. I will overhype this book. Like I said, I've been begging Hillary to read this book for so long, and she hasn't, specifically because I have overhyped it, and now she's just scared. But I really, really love this one. And I have read all of Leah Brunner's books, like literally her entire backlist. I've caught up on all of them. This one is my absolute favorite of them all. I did read it last year and I did reread it again. Um, and on this reread, I convinced someone else to read it for the first time, and then she loved it. She read the entire series, and then she read the entire backlist of Leah Brunner. So I'm just saying I'm very influential, and if I want to be influential, it's for Leah Brunner because I love her. So, back to this book. I love the bad boy villain situation in this book. He is, I mean, out of control. Suspended for 15 games. I don't even know if that really happens in real life, but he is pretty terrible. And the redemption arc that he gets, I love it. There's found family. I love Andy, the female main character. She she's like I mean, I don't want to say sunshine, like grumpy sunshine, because she feels more like a realistic sunshine. Like it does not come organically to her, but she's trying. And I just really appreciate that as someone that it does not come organically to me either. And in this book, she mentions how she works out for her mental health. And I was like, hey, I like that because I feel like I relate to that. And I just don't feel like we see female main characters working out very often. I don't know, total side note, but I liked seeing it here. And yeah, so I love everything. I love everything. I have nothing bad to say about this book. If you have read this one and loved it, there's a whole series. So she has a whole hockey series. Every single one of them I loved. If you enjoy super grumpy hockey players, single guardians, tattoos, found family, some humor, and a lot of hot chemistry in a closed door romance, pick this one up. And that's Desire or Defense by Leah Brunner.
Yeah, Hannah has been trying to get me to read that forever. And I own it, well, on my Kindle. It was like on a Kindle deal, I think. And so I got it. And but yeah, I'm so intimidated because she loves it so much. And I just I don't, y'all know how I am by now with books. So, but usually that's how I like books is whenever I'm like, I don't know if I'll like this, and then I read it and I'm like, this is my favorite book. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I will read it, but I probably won't say, I'll just tell you after that I read it.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, what's your book one?
Okay. My first book is Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tuli. This is book one of four in this series. Do you know what this is?
Yes, I literally just added this to my TBR like
Okay.
last week.
Yeah, I apparently it's really big on Book Talk. I don't know. I wasn't aware of that, but I saw someone post about it and that she loved it, so I just picked it up, but I didn't really know much about it. So here's the setup. The book opens up in a prison yard. Laura has been a prisoner for 12 years since she was a child. She is regularly starved or beaten, and her parents were killed. She maintains the little hope that she has with the help of her brother and sister, who are also imprisoned with her. One night, there's a prison riot, and Laura's knocked out and kidnapped. She wakes up in a luxurious bed with silk sheets and with a tray full of delectable foods, steaming mugs of coffee and cream, thick pancakes coated in syrup and butter, crispy, salty bacon. She is in heaven. She quickly learns that she has been chosen to participate in the trials, a bachelor, like the TV show, slash Hunger Games type game to compete for the Sun King's hand in marriage. The Sun King is this too good to be true Prince Charming, and Laura's quickly won over. She has to win, or she will be sent back to prison for life. Okay, this book has some very tense moments where I couldn't put the book down. If you've read Fourth Wing, then you'll find scenes similar to the parapet or the gauntlet scenes, except these involve killer mermaids. The trial scenes of the book were my favorite by far. The romance plot definitely took a back burner. The author did note that more will come in the future books. I did check out the second book, but I have since seen reviews say that the books get spicier as the series goes on. So I'm not sure if I will read on or just enjoy book one for what it was. I will say that it did end with a cliffhanger. I did really enjoy the first book, but I wouldn't necessarily say it was a must read for me. So that's The Trial of the Sun Queen by Nisha J. Tuli. I thought it was fine. I liked it. Like I said, I really did enjoy it. I guess what gave me the reservation is in the author's note. She said something like, "I promise the smut is coming." And I
Mm.
was like, "Oh, I don't know." And so, I mean, I think we'll eventually will talk about that topic more on the podcast, but I, especially this year, have been really trying to be more picky about what I read. And I don't know. So with that note, how she's like, "Yeah, the smut's coming." Usually if people say a book is smutty, I'm like, it's probably not for me. So I did like it, but again, it wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, this is so good that it's worth me like skimming through to see where I need to skip in the book,"
Yeah.
if that makes sense. So it's a whole series. So if it's gonna, I don't know how spicy it gets though, and that's like it's so subjective to people.
And maybe if someone's read it, they can tell us. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you already know. Like, I will find you and I'm like, oh, hi, can you tell me? Like, am I gonna think this is too spicy? And people are really good about like disclosing that, being like, yeah, like I feel like it's getting easier to get that information, which I appreciate, like how spicy a book is gonna be. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, so I did put a note in there and then I took it off, but now I'll just say it. Like if I find a review that's like, "Yeah, it's just this chapter," then that's fine. But sometimes they're like, "Yeah, it's chapter 10, 12, 15, 17, 18, 19." I'm like, it's just not worth it to me. So we'll
hmm.
see. We'll see. Anyway, what's your next book?
So for my next book, I am gonna talk about Murder She Sold. This is by Ray Riley. And this book is a debut novel. It just came out this month. So, okay, 10 years ago, Vivian left her home in California, leaving her toxic father and never wanted to look back. But when he calls her, claiming life or death consequences if he doesn't sell his house, Vivian can't help but get sucked back in. When she arrives, she finds a dead body, a missing father, and maybe even love with the help of a small town police officer in this charming mystery romance. Okay, um, first of all, this one has a lot of spice. So that did come into play that like talking about spice levels and like your enjoyability, I guess, of a book just being maybe not compatible.
That's kind of surprising because it about like Murder She Wrote, the TV show?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like, that is not what I think about as spicy.
So in this debut novel, I was very intrigued with the premise because it promises to combine romance and a murder mystery. And I'm like, ooh, I think I'll like that. I love romance. I love like murder mystery. That sounds fun. Like a cozy murder mystery. I'm like, yes, I want to read it. So I did find the mystery elements to be interesting. The mystery is definitely what kept me interested in the book. I did keep wanting to know answers as far as that was concerned. I loved Vivian's family. We meet her grandma and her cousin. I love a grandma. I loved that her grandma and her cousin, they were voices of reason. And as far as the love interest, I did like him too. However, I did feel like the primary focus of his and Vivian's relationship was in the physical elements. It felt like their chemistry, like their physical chemistry, was described so much that I was like, okay, Vivian, I get it. You think he's hot. You want to do the deed. Like, we all know this, like from page one. And I just wanted to see a little bit more depth with them, like as a couple, more of an emotional bond, not just a physical connection. So I really feel like the smut did overtake everything else, which is just not my personal favorite thing in a book. It was spicy. It was very spicy. It is like interwoven throughout. So if you're going to go into this one, I would say go into it 100% knowing there's a lot of open door scenes on this. If that's what you're looking for, then you dive right in. With that said, If you enjoy mystery, reunions with families, wise grandmas, a hot police officer, and a lot of open door romance, then you might enjoy this one. And that's Murder She Sold by Ray Riley.
Is this gonna be like a series or no?
So yes, the characters are side characters and it's gonna be continued. I did really like the characters that it's gonna be about for book two, but I won't be picking it up just because I can tell that it's like it's a spicy read. And the author advertises that. Like I did not see these advertisements until after the fact. But she does advertise it as like what you said. Like this is gonna be a very smutty time, and so if that's what you're looking for, then this will be the perfect pickup for you.
That is surprising based on the cover too.
A closed door.
Yeah, it's a closed door. That's confusing. Okay. My next book is it's funny, speaking of mystery, like murder mystery, this one is The Woman on the Ledge by Ruth Mancini. I texted you about this briefly, but this was the book that I read last week. Okay.
Mm.
The book opens up with a nail-biting scene. A woman has fallen off a 25-story building. The only person who knows anything, Tate Kinsella. She said she spoke to the woman earlier last night when she was standing on the ledge, but Tate says she talked her down. So was it a suicide? Was it an accident? Or was it a murder? Now, Tate is arrested for the murder of the woman because the police don't believe her story, and turns out her lawyer doesn't believe her either. This book took so many little twists and turns, you'll never be sure if you have a reliable narrator or not. So while this is marketed like a thriller, even looking at the cover, I would say this is firmly a mystery with dual timelines, which I love. But nothing frightening happened here. Like it's not scary. It's not, I guess it just depends on what is scary to you, but I always think of scary like I'm in a house and I don't know who's walking through the house and I don't know, what the noises are in here. Nothing like that happens at all. We're like looking at the police investigation. That's like my favorite type of
Mm.
mysteries, like the investigation, the lawyer part. I love it. I loved all of that. Um, the blurb doesn't mention this part, but I thought it was important to say that this is a book that will have you clapping your hands and cheering for girl power. Obviously, we do have trigger warnings because like it's a mystery, a murder mystery, so there are going to be difficult topics. Um, but nothing's ever graphic at all. Like we don't have graphic violence, graphic spice. Um, so I think even more sensitive readers like Hannah would be okay. If you've read and enjoyed Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister, you should try The Woman on the Ledge by Ruth Mancini. And then I read her bio somewhere online, and she is an attorney.
Oh, that's
She's a
cool.
criminal defense lawyer. And so it made sense after I read that. I was like, "Oh, that's why I like this." Like it was heavy in the book's about Tate telling her story to her attorney. And I
Mm.
was like, it's so interesting. So, yeah, it was good. It was very good. It had me like asking questions like, is this real? Can you really tell your attorney everything and not like get in trouble? But I did like it, and I look, she does have several books in the past that she has written, but apparently this is her United States debut. So the others she wrote and published only in the UK, but this is the first one published in the United States. But yeah, it was a good one. I liked it.
Good. A win.
Yeah, that was a successful number two.
Yeah, you've broken the curse.
Yeah.
Okay, for my last pick of the day, I am picking a fanfic. So it's funny because I almost talked about this last week, and Hilary talked about a fanfic last week. So I was like, oh, at least they're spaced out for you guys because I'm going to talk about Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love by at Is This Self-Care. Now, as Hilary mentioned last week, fanfic has a whole culture. They have social rules that I'm not super aware of. I posted a review about this book or this fanfic, and the author liked it. She shared it. She commented positively on the post. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that as the green light to just go forward. She liked it, okay? Don't sue me. So let's get into the synopsis. This fanfic begins 15 years after the war, at the end of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Draco is an Auror who is assigned to protect Hermione, who is a medical researcher and healer, when she's working on a super secret project that puts her at high threat of danger. So that's a synopsis, really, really short. If you know me, I'm obsessed with Harry Potter. So this could be a whole episode on its own. But I'll leave it at that. I'm obsessed with Harry Potter. But I've always wanted to see Draco get a redemption that I feel like he deserved and needed. So I feel like this fanfic delivered that for me. The beginning of it did feel a little bit slow, but I didn't really have a problem with it because there wasn't a lot happening plot-wise, but there was like the friendship and like the very slow process. So when you consider Draco and Hermione, their past and their history and all the ways that the Malfoys, including Draco, were cruel and horrible to Hermione during the Harry Potter series, the snail pace of this book, like the slow burn, it's very, very, very slow burn. It makes sense for me because of their past. And I really appreciated how the author did that because it was really, really good. This fanfic is almost 600 pages, so it's long, but I did love it. There's fan art. There are so many references to the original Harry Potter series, which I loved, like Time Turner, charms, spells. They mention when Hermione slapped Draco. So all of that is referenced, which really makes it have the same magic feeling. And there's a bodyguard vibe because Draco is protecting Hermione. The characters feel exactly how they do in Harry Potter to me. So I would say this one is for the fans, the diehards of Harry Potter who loved Draco and saw the potential. There's a lot of Crookshanks, which I love. And just in general, if you're obsessed with Harry Potter, I think you'll be into this. If you don't love Harry Potter, the series, I would say don't even bother with this because this is specifically for the fans, fanfic. It's open door. There's a few scenes. I skipped them, and it was like the story was good on its own without it. But there was one scene that was very, very long. Like she mentions a note though where you can like come back if you want to skip
That's
it.
nice. I love it that authors are starting to do that.
Yeah, so she does that. I'm just giving you a heads up. It's long, but you can skip it easily, and she does put that in there. So if you enjoy forced proximity, all things Harry Potter, childhood rivals, redemption arcs, and a very slow burn, pick this one up. It's lovely, and if you read it and hate it, don't tell me. And that's Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love by at Is This Self-Care?
Yeah, Hannah was texting me earlier this week, looking at buying this book or this work of art. Here I go from the last.
I know.
I'm still salty.
Yes, I do. I want to buy it because it's a book that I'm like, I think about it probably every day.
Yeah, it's funny because I've had this downloaded too. I just haven't read it. I think because I read Manacled and Manacled was like so good, but like dark. And so I think soon I'll be ready soon to do a brighter one.
So if you want a dark Harry Potter fanfic, do that one. And then if you want like a happy, lighter one, do this one.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna read it. I just haven't yet, but I plan to. Okay.
What's your last book?
Okay. My last book, I've had, okay, three good, like, good books. So don't get used to it, but it had to be done. My last book to talk about today is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. Okay, this book, when I read it, it was not as popular, I think, on Instagram, but since then, it has just exploded. I feel like if you have not read it, I'll be surprised because it is so popular right now for good reason. So this is a 4-book series, and the 4th book is coming out soon. So this is a setup for book 1 only. Diem has grown up facing severe mistreatment by the descendants because she was born immortal. She lives in Lumnos, a city where mortals are second class in every way. One day, Diem's mother mysteriously goes missing. No one seems to know or care that she's gone, and Diem is determined to find her. When Diem is forced to work together with the crown prince, her grumpy, moody enemy, to find her mother, will she find the answers she is seeking, or will she just uncover darker truths that were meant to be left undiscovered? Okay. As with any fantasy novel, I am typically unsure about how I feel the first 25%. This book, I don't remember how long it was, but I feel like it was 450, like 450 page, like a normal size book. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like the first 100 pages. I was like, I don't know what's happening at all. But I can tell you once I got my feet under me, I flew through it. And I think that's just normal. I think we're just dealing with world building. We're just like learning the people and the magic and the lands. But this one's cool because it has a map and no 30-page glossary. You just learn as you read. I will say this is not a steamy book. And again, I'm talking about the first book. This is not a steamy book. This is a political fantasy with family drama, with a romance that is an afterthought. The
Mm-hmm.
romance never pays off in this book. And I don't say that as a negative. I'm just letting you know, like, if you are not for slow burn, this series is probably not for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is slow burn big time because, yeah, like I said, book 1 is not really about that as much. I have read on in the series again, and the 4th one comes out soon, and that will complete it. So this is the perfect time to try it because it's also on Kindle Unlimited. And that is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole.
Yes. I like that one a lot too. I loved it.
Yes, we are anxiously awaiting book 4, and both of us are on the ARC team thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm like trying to be like, I'm trying to wait for the email when it's going to come in because I think I'm just going to have to drop everything. And I'm very
Yes.
excited. Very excited. Y'all should let us know if you want like extra episodes ever of like spoiler episodes as if we talk about just like one book.
Mm-hmm.
But DM is, I wouldn't say she's unlikable, but I would say she is foolish
Yes.
because she's also like 20 years old. And I want to remind people of what you were like at 20 years old. Foolish. And that's okay. Like, I think in that mindset, it makes more sense because she's like, la di da di da. I don't care what you think. I'm gonna go through this door that, like, what's that character's name on Inside Out?
Bing bong?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yes. Bing bong. She's like, that door, it says shortcut. Danger, shortcut. And you're like, no, that says danger. Do not go. That was exactly like, so if I need to make a reel of
Yes.
that somehow, that's the vibes of her. Um, but I will say, eventually maybe I'll do a review on the second and third, or Hannah can do those too. But I do think she grows,
Mm-hmm.
but it does take her a while. So if you get exasperated by characters that you're like, you are making a dumb, dumb choice, like she does a lot of that. So, yeah.
Yes. She does a lot of that for a long time. And I have like, because I have talked to people who have been like reading it for the first time, and even people who feel like that, they still enjoy the books. Like even if they don't necessarily enjoy her in all of her foolishness, they still do enjoy the book. So, yeah.
And the male lead, again, it like we don't see a lot of romance or any, if at all, in this book. Maybe just like tiny little blips, but he is like all my favorites, like grumpy, um, very quiet.
Mysterious.
Yeah, like all my favorite, like quiet introverted, grumpy, but like very kind. I like it was a very just solid book. I will buy these eventually for my
Yeah,
shelves.
I think we need to do a whole episode just about that. Like not like the normal format, like a bonus
Yeah.
episode about maybe when the fourth one comes out after we read it, like going through it and like all spoilers. So I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll see. That'd be fun.
Okay. So now it's time for our topic of the day. Today, we're talking about book slumps, what they are, how we deal with them, what caused them, all that. So, Hannah, do you want to start us off? I know we had said we had a plan of what we were going to talk about. And then we said, never mind, let's talk about book slumps because that seems to be like a topic that we've been texting about a lot.
Yeah, I don't know what is wrong with me lately. I feel like it is like a continual wave of book slump. Like more often than I feel like I used to get them. For me, what I consider a book slump is when I'm reading a book and I just don't feel invested. Like I just don't. I'm like, no, I don't care. Or if I'm reading a book and I'm just grumpy about everything. Like I don't know if anyone resonates with that, but where I'm just like, oh, I don't like you, and then like, oh, that is so dumb, like about everything. And so I don't know, maybe it's just a bad attitude, but it just hits me, and then I don't want to read anything because everything I read, I'm just like grumpy about. What do you consider a book slump?
I basically said the same thing. Like, one, I don't feel like reading very much. Or two, it's usually this, because I usually want to read, but it's usually I want to read, but I can't seem to like anything that I'm reading very much. So it's like I'm trying a lot, but nothing feels like it's hitting
Mm-hmm.
the right way.
Yeah, or I've noticed too, or it'll be like where I'm just distracted, like nothing is like engaging my brain,
Yeah,
where I'm
like
just
I don't
like,
want to pick it up.
yeah. And so, okay, when you get like that, what do you think causes it?
Yeah, this is a whole. I'm like, here we go. Get ready. Get the snacks, get the drinks. Okay. So for me, it depends. So I wrote several things down, just random stuff. So I think it does get worse for me whenever we're really busy at home. So summer has been kind of hard for me, I guess, because school's out and so Noelle stays up later. It's brighter outside, and so I feel like my routine's like all like to the garbage. And so I don't have like a lot of built-in my usual built-in time to read. So like my routine's
Mm-hmm.
weird. And then Taylor has been home lately in the evenings, which is it's good. Like I'm happy that he is. Like I'm happy to spend time with him because he's gone a lot. But that again throws off my routine because I'm like, well, I want to hang out with him while he's here, or like we're talking or watching something or going somewhere, like going to friends' houses or something. But which again, I will choose people over my books usually, like the people that I want to. But it does interrupt my flow. So I'm a creature of like my routine. And so I just, once I get out of my routine, I kind of get kind of wonky in that. But then another thing, I've been trying to think because my reading this year has been okay. It's been good. I think on Storygraph it says it's been like my overall rating has been like a 4, which is not, it's good. But
Mm-hmm.
like my feeling is like I haven't had as many amazing books this year. There's been a few, like a handful or less of like amazing books that I've read this year. And I think one of the reasons is that I have been really trying to find not spicy books. And I've been trying a lot of new stuff and I just don't like a lot of it. I don't know. I've been not impressed by a lot of it. So I think that in trying a bunch of different new things, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm reading a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily love, which is fine. But then I'm like, ugh, do I like reading anymore? I don't know.
Okay, to piggyback off that, yes, I think that when you try new things, and trying new authors or new genres, whatever, I do think that sometimes that can put you in a slump because you don't know. I'm trying all these things and it may or may not work. So I feel like that also if I have like a ton of arcs, I get slumpy sometimes. And I've gotten much better and you obviously have too because you've caught up on all yours. I only have like two right now that are not done. But in the past, if I had like a ton, it would just stress me out because I am like I have to get everything done on the list. I have to do it, as soon as possible. So then it just kind of puts me in a slump because then I'm not mood reading. And if I'm not mood reading, then I'm typically not happy. Like I have to have
Yeah.
the freedom to like literally read what I want when I want. Otherwise, I do feel like I get slumpy.
That's why I think I struggle with book club books a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I think everything you said, I feel like I agree with. And then I feel like if I'm in a stressful season of life, I think it's hard to focus on books sometimes. Or another thing too, if I'm reading a fantasy book, if I'm finding like if I have to pause so often where I feel like I can't get into it because I keep having to like start, pause. So it's like I have to make sure that I have like a at least a little chunk of time like after bedtime or something to like actually try to like read it because if not, especially with fantasy like world building, you can't read like 2 pages at a time. Like you have to get momentum on that and that can be hard whenever your routine is off. Okay, so when you're in a slump, what do you do?
Honestly, usually I go to Taylor and I'm like, I think I just don't like reading anymore. And he's
Me
like,
too.
oh my God. But that's usually, I'm like, what's wrong
Okay,
with me? Why don't I like anything? I think it's just me. I think I don't like reading anymore. And he's like, oh my God, whatever.
Josh will tell me that it's because I'm in a bad mood. He's like, "It's you, and you're just grumpy." And I'm like, "No, I'm grumpy because the book is no good." Anyway, and I'm like, "Which came first, Josh? Which came first, the chicken or the egg?" And he's like, "Definitely you grumpy." But I refuse. I don't know, guys. Everybody needs to go ask their husbands what they think the reason of the book slump is, if it's like the book or is it you?
I do ask Taylor though, which is funny. You'll be surprised by this. I'll be like, is it me or is it the book? And Taylor's like, it's the book for sure.
That's the correct answer. But here's the question, I guess. Do you DNF or do you push through? What's your standard if you're in a slump and you're not feeling it?
I DNF. If I feel like I'm just gonna read this and I'm not enjoying myself at all, I'm gonna stop it for sure. And just keep trying over and over and over something until something
Mm-hmm.
is okay. Like if I feel like this is gonna be 2 stars, I'm gonna stop.
Okay, I did not ever used to do that. Like, I would push through like all of it because in my brain, I was like, especially if I made it far, I'm like, well, then I want to push through and I want to finish because then I'm like, hate reading it. But also, I'm like, well, I don't feel like I can like leave a review if I don't finish it. And then I'm like, I just spent all this time. So I feel like I want to say why I didn't finish it. So anyway, it's dumb, but I have gotten better to where I will just DNF and Storygraph has it where you can DNF.
Yeah, and it counts towards your pages.
I mean, I don't care about pages, but I like that you can say why you DNF'd it because I don't like that on Goodreads. I don't know. Maybe someone needs to educate me where you don't rate it, but I see so many people rate books that they
Yeah, because they don't
DNF'd.
let you because they don't let you make a comment unless you
That's what I thought.
rate it.
I thought that, and that's why I don't like it. That's why I don't like DNFing because then I'm like, I can't, like, I don't feel like I have a way of like saying why I DNF'd it without it like logging that I read it and rated it because I'm not going to rate a book stars that I did not finish. I don't know. I don't like doing that. So this week, yeah, I DNF'd several, and there was like one of them that I didn't. it was like a pause. Like I'm like, I don't feel this right now. I don't think that it's like forever that I wouldn't ever pick it back up, but like for now, I'm like, nah, I'm not feeling it. So I'm getting better at like doing that instead of pushing through because I used to push through and have like a lot of 1 star, 2 stars because of that.
I do have something, though I did list a few things that have helped me in the past. If it's really bad, like to where, like I said, I'm like, I don't like anything. I don't know if I like reading anymore. I don't want to read because everything is stupid. Rereading a favorite helps me. That's always what I suggest to somebody is if like
Hmm.
nothing's hitting, I always go back to like Harry Potter, yeah, like any of them. I feel like I went through the last year, I went through the whole series again. And then so I finished Deathly Hallows and then so whenever I feel like that again, I'm just gonna pick up the first one again and then
Hmm.
read whatever I want. And then when I feel like that again, go through, go to book two. But then I also like Hunger Games, just stuff that I know, like that every time I go through it, I'm like, yes, this is so good. Just having a few things like that. I know some people say like throwing a glass is that for them or ACOTAR, whatever is like you're like, I love this every time.
I agree. I have that. I have like a list of things that I think help, and I do rereads. I highly recommend. I agree. And then another thing that I have on my list, which Hillary is like big on telling me this. She's like, switch your genre. So if you're reading romance, I'm like, I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I'm speaking to somebody. If you're reading romance and you are like, this is all the same. Like I've heard this story, this is the same. This is the same. Switch. You need to do a thriller, you need to do fantasy, something else because that does happen. And like for me, every romance I was picking up last week, I was like, ugh, like it's just fine, but like it was not anything that was exciting me. So then I picked up a fantasy and I'm like super into it and I'm loving it. So I think sometimes you need to change it up.
Yeah, I had that too. I had that. Try something totally different. I had been reading a lot of fantasy books, and like you said with the romance, I was like, I don't like anything. I don't know. I'm just over it right now. So that's when I picked up The Woman on the Ledge, and that kind of goes with the other one. Reading something either that's short.
Hmm.
I say short. I don't personally like short books. I've learned like that has been solidified for me this week. I am not a big novella person. That is rarely good for me. But a fast paced, so like something with short chapters. I that so like usually thrillers have short chapters.
Hmm.
So that's why like you were saying, sometimes fantasy is like maybe I just don't have the brain space for that right
Yeah.
now, but like I can pick up my book and read 3 pages right now. And usually you're like, okay, three more, three more, three more, three more.
Hmm.
But just something quick. It doesn't have to be the best book I ever read, but just something fun.
Yeah. My last thing is if you feel like you just don't like reading or like that, where you're like, is it me? My thing is just don't read. Like, if you're in a mood and it's just not happening, I would just say just pause. Like, for the day, watch TV, do something else. And then, like, honestly, then maybe you'll like the next day feel like reading again. A lot of times that can happen for me too, where I'm just like, I'm just gonna embrace it and I'm not gonna try to force it because sometimes you just need to not, honestly.
Yeah, I had that on my list. It's just said it's the hardest thing for me, but it's just accepting. Like, I don't feel like reading right now. I want to take a walk or I want to listen to podcasts. Like sometimes that's what I
Hmm.
do is like I'm just like listening to podcasts and I'll add books that sound good for whenever I feel like it. And usually something will sound really good and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna read again.
Yeah.
But just something different. But the last thing I had that Hannah didn't have is like try a different format. Sometimes
Hmm.
I don't feel like sitting down and reading a book, but I'll try an audiobook, which is like my secondary way of taking in stories, but something different. Or sometimes like your Kindle, you're like, I don't know. Then I'll look for something like on my shelf, like an actual paper book, just trying something different.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, ultimately, if nothing is hitting right, then I think it always comes around again. Like I love those books that you're like, I don't like anything. I don't think I like reading anymore. And that's what happened to me. And then the next book I read was Heartless Hunter. And I was
Hmm.
like, I love reading. This is why I love to read. And so I love that feeling of like, because sometimes you're like, well, nothing's going to be as good anymore. And then you read something
Hmm.
and you're like, yes, usually that's coming soon. It's
Yeah,
the best book I've ever read in my life.
I feel like that too. Yeah.
Okay. So we're wrapping things up with the short list or a book that you're excited to read in the near future. Do you have one?
Okay. So this book is I just literally they did a cover reveal and I'm very intrigued. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling by Marie Soleil and it is named Isabel and the Beast. And this book doesn't come out until she has it listed for January 2025. So it'll be a little bit, but the cover is really pretty. I'm sucked in with covers, first of all. Sue me. But it's a rom-com and you have it's actors, but I don't know. It sounds like it's going to be some sort of like magical realism because it's Beauty and the Beast. And so it mentioned something about like she goes to his house to like practice, the acting lines, and that it's snowing in Southern California and she gets stranded there. I don't know. It sounds like a wild time, but I read the blurb, and I'm like, this just sounds like unique. Like it just sounds different. And I'm a sucker for Disney too. So that one seemed exciting to me.
Okay. I had one, like I had a book picked, typed up for this episode, and then I'm changing it. Um, I just sent Hannah a reel about this book earlier. I know very little about it, but it looked really interesting. It's by Brittany Wang, but she made this reel and she said, if you crushed hard on Will Turner, and it was like all of Orlando Bloom on the Pirates of the Caribbean, then she's like, you need to read this book. And she has this book and it's called On Wings of Ash and Dust. And she said it's like enemies to lovers, magical Hunger Games with royal fae. She said it has a stabby heroine, found family, fae, mermaids, and pirates. So she said it's no spice YA fantasy. YA is what makes me kind of nervous, but so is Hunger Games. So it looked really interesting though.
You sent that to me, and I was like, oh, this is on my list already. And I was like, I don't know who's gonna read this first. I might beat Hillary to it because I am like pirates. The book I talked about last week, I'm like pirates, mermaids, sign me up. Like I am so in the mood for that, and that does sound really good.
I know, I saw it, and I was gonna say that has helped me. What you need to do is like find one author that you liked something that they wrote, follow them on Instagram and like their post, and eventually, like your suggested content will
Mm.
catch up. And so I that's how this lady came across my page was I don't know, she was like, "Are you looking for this?" And I'm like, "Oh, that looks so interesting."
You're like, yes. And another thing
Yeah.
too is like I feel like authors they recommend books that are similar to them. So like
Yeah, they're friends.
exactly. Erin Phillips, who wrote Bond of Briars and Crown of Chains, I have like started reading books that she recommends. Like I've read a few and they like have a similar vibe from hers. And so I'm going down the train of like once you find one and then they recommend one and I'm like I'm on a good path with that sort of method.
That's what I've done. And I'm like following these people, even though I haven't read their books yet. I'm like, I'm gonna follow them, like their posts, save them so I know. And then slowly your algorithm starts shifting away from whatever you're not looking for. So for me right now, I'm not looking for this is so trashy. I can't even post it because I'm gonna get banned. Like that did show up on my algorithm. And I'm like, that is not what I'm interested in yeah, like the Will Turner fantasy, that is more my vibe. But yeah, so that is one that I am I paused my Kindle Unlimited because I wanted to read all my Libby holds. Like I had 10 that were just like boom, 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 one after another. So I have been getting through all of those. Um, and some books that I own, but I'm almost through that stuff. But there's some stuff on Kindle, like Kindle Unlimited keeps getting better. And especially if you want like the no to lower spice options, like there's so much on there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think people thought Kindle Unlimited was always just like super spicy stuff, and that's just not the case anymore at all.
It's good information. I think that Kindle Unlimited, it does. It has a lot of indie authors you can find on there. And not just indie, but yeah, like closed door. It is like really hard to find closed door, like adult closed door.
Yeah, there's like no traditional publishers, very few that are willing to put that out unless it's like women's fiction.
Yeah, so you're not gonna like necessarily find a lot of it like at Target or like even at the library. Like my library does not have like if I look up any of like the closed door authors that I love, they're not on my library. So very few. Kindle Unlimited has a lot of them and I do use it a lot for that purpose. So yeah, I agree.
If you've made it this far and didn't add this episode to your DNF pile, thanks a bunch.
That brings us to the end of this week's episode for the Don't You Two Read podcast. We hope you enjoyed hearing about our recently read books and hopefully getting to know us better as we begin this podcast journey with you guys.
We will be including timestamps in the description on every episode so you can check there for books or products that we mentioned in today's episode.
Be sure to tune in to our next episode when we will be chatting about all things books. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Don't You Two Read Podcast, and you can find me at Hannah Reads.
And I'm at Hilary Reads. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a moment to follow us? You can also rate and review us wherever you listen. And as always, please share this with all of your bookish friends.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we hope you have a magical week filled with 5-star reads.